Good member of the Republican Party, Edward Smith.
Thank you. We got a good crowd here. That's fantastic. We really appreciate you all showing up. Welcome to the candidate forum for the State House District 180. We've got Representative Jason Spencer, the incumbent, and we've got Mr. Steven Saniz here for us today, and we really appreciate you guys coming. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and talk about these rules. We're going to have opening and closing statements. They're going to run 3 minutes apiece, and the order will be alphabetical. It'll rotate. Okay. So Mr. Sands, you'll have the first opening. Representative Spencer will have the first closing. Okay. When we get to the questions, each candidate will have a chance to answer each question. We're going to rotate who answers the first, starting alphabetically with Mr. Sands on the first question. The timekeeper will strictly enforce a 2-minute time limit per answer, and I think we've already discussed that she's got some cards to try to help you all stay on time here. As far as rebuttals, they are allowed. If you're referenced in an opposing candidate's answer, you will be allowed a 30-second rebuttal if you wish. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, well, let's get started. Mr. Sands, would you like to start with your opening?
Sure. Bert, thank you all for coming here today. My name is Steven Saniz. Say it however you like. I apologize for my voice. It's joining a little bit, but can you hear me all right in the back? I look to seek this office because I truly believe in the people of this district. I believe we need good representation in Atlanta. I believe it is a struggle and a fight to ensure services of this state get down here to Camden County, to Ware County, and to Charleston County, which make up this large district. I want to ensure I'm first and foremost a servant of the people. The Georgia Constitution says that any public officer is a servant and trustee of the people that elect them. And that's what I'm looking to be. This office doesn't make you any more important than anyone else in your district, and I'm not looking to be that. I'm looking to be reachable and approachable. The push cards on your table have my personal cell phone number. Feel free to give me a call at any point during or after the campaign. I look forward to tonight's debate, and if you have any questions for me afterwards, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve in the General Assembly for the last 8 years. For the last 6 years, I've had the distinguished honor to represent Ware County. Over the years, I've done a lot of good for Southeast Georgia. And I wanted to say that I could not do it without my wife and my family, because this takes a team effort. My family's been very supportive over the years. I grew up here in Southeast Georgia, and I just want to say thank you, Ware County, Waycross, for supporting me over the years. One thing that I did when I got elected is I wanted to stop, I wanted to arrest Obamacare coming to Georgia. That was the reason why I ran for office. When I ran for office, we put in House Bill 990 and House Bill 707. We stopped and slowed down Obamacare in Georgia. I made that promise, I did it, and I kept it. Another thing when I did while I was in office, I did the Hidden Predator Act. The Hidden Predator Act exposed pedophiles within our communities. We had a case just over the river in Blackshear, Georgia. Right here in Camden County. In Camden County, we had a situation there. That led to a statewide policy that led to the exposure of Dr. Larry Nassar, which is one of the biggest sex scandals in the United States. It was because of the Hidden Predator Act, the law that I wrote. Also, we are trying to get a spaceport in Camden County. That's going to have significant regional economic impact across our region. And that's going to have a tourism impact. People are going to want to come through Ware County. They're going to want to come through Waycross, through Okefenokee Swamp to get over and watch those rockets go off. Our kids here in Ware County are going to get excited about science, math, engineering, and technology. And I can't wait to bring that project to full fruition here. When I got into the General Assembly, there was an absolute leadership vacuum in space policy. And it's because of that project in Camden County that I took the role and wrote that policy for Southeast Georgia. This is the kind of catalyst project we need in our area. And so I want to thank everybody who came tonight to learn about the candidates, learn about the differences. I have the experience, because experience is actually going to be important when we go back to Atlanta. Redistricting is coming up. We need loud voices, and we need voices that share our values, because we're going to lose representation in South Georgia. It's time that we put an experienced person in that seat, and I stand ready to serve you.
Thank you. Okay, first question. Do you consider yourself an establishment Republican or a Trump Republican, and why? Please also discuss how your work experience and personal background make you the best man for the job. Mr. Saniz, if you'd like to go first.
Would you also close that door?
Yeah, it is a little loud. It's up to you.
Well, if y'all can hear me, the first part of that, if I'm a Trump Republican or an establishment Republican, at first, I voted for Trump. I voted for Trump in the primary election, and I voted for him in the general, and I think he's representing us well in D.C. I think it's a hard battle to fight, and I think we need to ensure that we have true conservatives in all offices of government, starting from our local level to our federal. The primary reason I chose to be a Republican from the get-go was because the Republican Party has always instilled the value of local government is better government. No government is preferable. Government is all a necessary evil, as Thomas Paine says. But the local government that the people are the most amenable to, the most able to vote in or out, is the best form of government if there is one. So I think ensuring our state has the authority to make healthcare policy. I think one of the worst things that came to Georgia is Obamacare. It take away a lot of the levels of ability for the state to make true healthcare reform because we're tied to DC. But from this point forward, we need to ensure that the conservative party is able to take what we have right now. We have control of all forms of government in DC, other than the Supreme Court, which is unpolitical, it's supposed to be. In all forms of government in Georgia, we are accountable for what we do or do not do at this point. We need to ensure we act conservative principles that have put our party forward. So when asked if I'm a Trump Republican or an establishment Republican, I voted for Trump, but I believe it's necessary for us to be one party. As far as my work history concerns, I'm proud of the work I've done as an executive director to Camden Family Connection and bringing livability projects to the county and to the region. And I'm proud of the work I've done with the Crimes Against Children unit of the Sheriff's Department as an investigations team.
Thank you, Mr. Saniz. Representative Spencer?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. Do you consider yourself an establishment Republican or a Trump Republican, and why? Please also discuss how your work experience and personal background make you the best man for this job.
I consider myself a constitutional conservative first. I feel like that the Bill of Rights and the Constitution is what should guide all conservatives. Yes, I did vote for Donald Trump, and I do support what he's doing. I've actually pleasantly surprised. He's probably governed more conservative, probably more than Ronald Reagan, since being in office. So I support the agenda of President Trump so far. He has done a pretty good job. We don't agree with everything that everybody does all the time. Who does? But Ronald Reagan said, my friend is the person I agree with 80% of the time, and I can agree with Donald Trump on most things that he's done so far. So I've always fought the establishment since I've been in office. I fought the establishment when I first ran for office, and I've been fighting the establishment since I've been in office in Atlanta since day one. We passed Obamacare. The Hospital Association did not want it. The Governor Deal did not want that bill. He did not want to sign that bill. I made him sign that bill. He did not want to sign that bill. We arrested Obamacare's spread in Georgia. Okay. I've also fought the establishment by putting in the Hidden Creditor Act. I have fought the insurance industry. I have fought the Chamber of Commerce. I have fought the Catholic Archdiocese. I have fought the Boy Scouts of America. So I have fought a lot of powerful special interest groups, and I have a record to prove it. So my record speaks for itself. I'm a pro-life candidate supported by the strongest pro-life group in the state, and I am pro-NRA endorsed and pro-Second Amendment. Those things are important to you, and I should get your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, next question. Representative Spencer, you can answer this one first. To what degree do you participate in the activities of the Camden County Republican Party, and what positions of leadership have you held in the county, district, or state parties?
My role in the Camden County Republican Party is I have tried to stay somewhat neutral out of party politics inside Camden County Republican Party because I am an elected official. Republicans in that party, you're supposed to serve all of them. And so as an elected official, I try to stay somewhat out of the party politics if possible. Sometimes that does not always happen. And so I have participated in local conventions. I have participated in informing members who come to these conventions about what ballot initiatives might be on the ballot. I've given them legislative updates, and I have participated in their meetings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saniz?
I'm a member of the Camden County Republican Party. I was a precinct chair for a short time until I resigned to run for public office. I believe a local party is an asset and essential for community to have grassroots support. So I'm a strong supporter of the Camden Republican Party, the Ware Republican Party, and I'm a little jealous of Ware County having the Ware County Conservatives. I think that's an amazing asset to have.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next question. What changes to Georgia law do you propose to make K-12 education better in Georgia, and why? Please address Common Core and parental choice in your answer. Mr. Saniz, you can go first.
I want to commend the Georgia House, the Georgia Senate for passing the first ever fully funded quality basic education. That is a win for us. That increased by several hundreds of $1,000s all school systems in this district. However, quality basic education was built around in 1978, never fully funded since its inception until this legislative cycle. We need to do better for Georgia's children. Georgia is 38th in per pupil spending in the nation. That is not launching us, putting us in a position of success to compete with the other states in our nation. We need to look at how we fund education in Georgia. It is our largest expenditure in the state. We need to make sure that investment is being done wisely and efficiently and puts the teachers of this state first and foremost. We need to support teachers having control of the classroom and teaching the kids that they know. Administrators in the system level in the county and administrators in Atlanta don't know the kids they're teaching in that classroom. I'm a firm believer that Common Core is a reducer of that ability for a teacher to be the professional who is trained to teach a child to make a lesson plan. And we need to do away with as much regulation as possible while having a standard that puts Georgia first above the nation.
Thank you. Representative Spencer?
Well, while being in the General Assembly, when I took office, we were right during trying to recover from the Great Recession. Funding to public education had been cut. Since I had taken office, I have voted on every budget that gradually increased and put back money towards the QBE funding formula. And I can show you a graph that shows a linear upward tick on the amount of money that we have put in each budget to try to fully fund QBE. For the first time this year, I voted and supported the full funding of the Quality Basic Education Act. That's the law that's supposed to fund full education for public education and students in our state. I'm proud to say that I did that. I'm also proud to say that I have voted against testing mandates. The high-pressure test culture in our state comes right out of that governor's office. That's the Office of Student Achievement. We have a duplicative service. We have the Department of Education, and we have an entity inside the governor's office trying to write education policy. We need to decentralize and get rid of that office, and we need to give that decision-making ability to the Department of Education and elect our state school board instead of having it appointed by the governor. Also, Common Core. Common Core means communism. That's about as matter of fact as I can be about that. We are teaching our kids how to take a test and how to read a policy and procedure manual, and we're not teaching them how to critically think. The government, our state government needs to put local decisions back in the hands of local educators and leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Explain how you plan to keep existing jobs and bring new job opportunities to the district. Representative Spencer?
Well, the General Assembly has done a lot over the last few years. We do hold, as a state, we do hold the distinction of being #1 state within which to do business. However, what does that really mean? To decipher that, that means a lot of those jobs for multinational corporations have gone up to the Atlanta area into 285 Denver. And so unfortunately, not a lot of that has come our way. And so, but the House of Representatives has taken the initiative 2 years ago to look at what can be done in rural Georgia to bring jobs to the area. Internet viability, internet access is the #1 priority. And one of the things that I have done to try to help cultivate jobs in our district, as I have voted to fund our technical division here in Ware County with the welding program. I have worked to secure funding for the technical college in Camden County, working with our legislative delegation and other community leaders. It took a team effort, and I'm proud to say that I was a part of that. And so those are the things that I've done in office and will continue to do. Also, the spaceport project. I have brought that issue to the forefront in the minds of elected leaders in Atlanta, because that issue is going to help catalyze and create jobs in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sands?
As far as we are compared to I want to start with a catchphrase all Atlanta politicians like to say whenever they make a speech. Georgia's the #1 place to do business. What that means is Metro Atlanta is doing great. Cities in North Georgia, Savannah is doing fine. Rural Georgia is not. Rural Georgia is struggling to ensure that we have the population levels to continue to grow, the local tax levels to fund basic social services. We need to do better as a state, and it is currently on track that Atlanta is finally bringing attention that's long needed to rural development. But we need to ensure that doesn't pass our side, pass Southeast Georgia aside, before Atlanta starts talking about transit and needing to expand the 8-lane roadway. I was reading an article a few days ago, and it was pretty exciting. GATX, the rail, one of your rail companies in Ware County, is expanding operations here. And the nicest thing about that was there's no incentives needing to be given for Ware County to get that increase in investment. The first phase, it sounds like, is the investment in their already production, and then the expansion is phase 2. That is an amazing and keystone project that shows the needed growth in a community and what a community then rural Georgia is using as current assets to expound on. One of the things that we need to do, in my opinion, as a state, is ensure that local governments, local professionals, local authorities, development authorities have the tools they need to succeed. I think the economic development tier system for the state of Georgia is broken. Right now, Ware County and Athens are put on the same tier. It's because Athens has a lot of college students that make minimum wage jobs. No one's going to say UGA is a detriment to the economy of Athens and should decrease it in a tier system to where they get as much tools as Ware County does. So we need to revise it to ensure that rural Georgia is getting the most incentives possible to be competitive.
Thank you, Mr. Saints. Next question. Do you believe the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms should have any limits? If so, what limits and why? Also, are you in favor of constitutional carry? Mr. Saints?
No, there should be no limits to the Second Amendment. There should be no limits to any freedom afforded to us in the Constitution. I've been a firm supporter of public safety. I'm a member of the Sheriff's Office in Camden County, and the way I approach anyone who says, well, this is happening, that's happening, we don't give our freedoms away for any current event. That is what all of us should expect from all our local officials, state officials, and federal officials. I'm a supporter of constitutional carry. I'm a supporter of ensuring that we reduce, this is what I want you to measure me by if elected in 2 years, is the percentage of land in the state of Georgia, where it's gun-free, is that reduced? Because I believe that the most dangerous place for a citizen to be is a gun-free zone. That is the most dangerous place for a school system. What I believe should be that gun is a peace officer, as a deputy, as a police officer, that the state should afford some level of funding and support to rural counties. If they want a resource officer, is what they call them, in any school, in any elementary, any middle, any high school, we do that. But as far as the community is concerned, every citizen should have the right, the constitutionally afforded right, to carry a firearm, period. And I do have an A rating from the NRA.
Thank you. Representative Spencer?
Well, thank you. The Second Amendment is your permit. That is the only limit that should be there, is the Second Amendment in the Constitution. So I'm not sure why it's so hard for the liberal left, and even some members of the Republican Party, frankly, that's an issue. So there's absolutely should be no limits on the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment speaks for itself. That is a right that was inalienable. That means it was God-given, and no government can take it away from you. Constitutional carry. I have authored the very first bill in 2011, House Bill 679, on constitutional carry. The powers that be did not want to see it move. I co-sponsored 2 more constitutional carry bills in Georgia. Again, the powers that be, the establishment, again, stopped those bills. There's people in Atlanta that don't want you to have freedom to protect and defend yourself, and that's the truth. I'm the only candidate in this race, NRA endorsed. So I have a solid record on the Second Amendment. I do not waffle on that issue. And I also want to say I have voted to allow the flexibility for local school systems to provide training if they want to for teachers or anybody in their schools that has resource officers. We even put money into the budget to help with more security and safety in our school systems. So I have voted for those things. I have voted for campus carry in Georgia. You should have a right to defend yourself. If you go to Georgia Tech or Georgia State and you get mugged on campus, why should you not have the right to defend yourself? So no, there should not be any limits.
Sir, do you have a rebuttal?
As far as the endorsement, Jason is correct. He's not lying. He's NRA endorsed. The NRA does not endorse a candidate without a legislative record. I do not have a legislative record. I've never been in public office. So that is why I do not have, based on the survey they gave us to see what I would do in office, what my feelings are on gun rights, they gave me an A rating.
Thank you.
Sir, please use my name so I get a chance to rebut.
All right, let's do one more.
All right. Yes, I am the only candidate in the race NRA endorsed. It's because the record speaks for itself. If that's an issue that's important to you, then I should get your vote. You should heavily consider voting for me. Also, I've been endorsed in the past by Georgia Carry, the premier gun rights organization in the state of Georgia. So that's what I wanted to add to that issue.
Okay, next question. Traditionally, illegal immigration is primarily a federal issue, but they seem incapable of effectively addressing it. What is your plan to use state laws and regulations to make Georgia the least attractive destination in the United States for illegal immigrants? Representative Spencer.
Well, again, in some of our fights against the establishment in Atlanta, we tried to get on the license on your driver's license, because non-citizens can get driver's license. You can we tried to get a bill put in and passed to say non-citizen. We couldn't even do that in Atlanta because you have establishment politicians out there fighting us every step of the way. We wanted to have English only driver's test, English only signs, but you have the Chamber of Commerce in Atlanta, Georgia, wanting to put our signs in English and keep our sign and our driving test for Spanish or any other language. And so English should be the official language of Georgia. And I can't believe with the state that's controlled by Republicans, we can't get this passed. Those are the things that we can do. Other things that we have done is comprehensive immigration reform in Georgia in 2011, House Bill 87. It was the toughest anti-immigration bill in Georgia, stronger than Arizona. We actually have more illegal aliens in Georgia than Arizona does. It's just because our welfare state is attracting them. They're attracting those folks here. They're taking advantage of our hospitals. They're taking advantage of our schools, and they're putting extra burden on our taxpayers. So we need to do more, and we have done more in this past legislative session, tracking illegal aliens with the GBI, increase that database. And so those are the things that I have voted for in the General Assembly, and you can bet that I will be tough on illegal aliens.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saniz.
I want to start off by saying I'm the proud son of an immigrant mother. My father was an international law enforcement agent, and they met in Costa Rica and they moved here. I am not against legal immigration. I think it's important when we talk about this issue because the liberal left loves to clout Republicans as uncaring, as unkind. It's not unkind and uncaring to follow the law, period. Illegal immigration is a violation of law, and we must uphold the laws of this nation and the laws of this state. What we need to do is ensure that every law enforcement agency, every municipality, and every county in this state complies with the law. A sanctuary city is a city saying that they do not care about the laws of our nations, the rule and order of our governments. That is an insult to all citizens of this state, to all citizens of this nation when they do so. The state of Georgia needs to act to ensure there is no ability to have a sanctuary city in this state. That is essential for us to have a safe community and to ensure that once an immigrant is here illegally, once they get off a visa, they are very hard to track. You can invest as much money in the get-go of doing that, but it's difficult and it's inefficient. We need to work with the federal government to ensure that floodgate is stopped at the source, which is our borders, which This district happens to have a international, be right north of an international port and right south of a international airport in San Steven. It is an issue down here. It is an issue we need to address, and it's something I'll make as a priority in the State House.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Do you support religious liberty legislation and why? Also discuss the economic impact such a law could have on Georgia. Mr. Sainz?
Sure. As I addressed in the last question, the liberal left has a great job of controlling the media that people see. It has an influence on the policy that gets passed or not passed. Not all media. But what we need to ensure when we talk about religious liberty legislation is get to the root of the source. The root of that source is we want all citizens to have the right to pass whatever, to practice whatever religion they practice, whether it be Christianity, which is the majority of this district, whether it be Hindu or Islam or whatever else. We want every citizen to have the right through their daily life to practice the covenant of their faith. If there is any person, any business in this district that has an issue with that, I will sponsor legislation to ensure that that encumbrance to their freedom of practicing their faith in whatever way that means is annulled.
Thank you. Representative Spencer?
Well, during my time in the General Assembly, I have voted for religious freedom legislation. But again, establishment Republicans banding together with liberal Democrats to try and stop religious liberty legislation. The economic impact. Florida's doing pretty good. It's the lowest tax state in the country. They're doing pretty good, and they have a Religious Freedom Restoration Act. So Walt Disney's doing fine. So you go down to South Florida, they're doing fine on South Beach. So tourism, and they're shooting off rockets too. So they're doing great down there in Florida with the Religious Freedom Bill. Why can't Georgia have that? Why can't you be protected to exercise your freedom of religion, your freedom to assemble, your freedom of speech? You know, why not? But I tell you what, we'll continue to fight this fight. We really need a new governor is what we need. We need a new governor that understands this. We need a new governor that understands and doesn't pay lip service to the Chamber of Commerce and those that associate with them.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next question. Many rural hospitals in Georgia are struggling financially. What is your plan to save rural hospitals in Georgia? Representative Spencer.
Well, the General Assembly has done many things. One thing we're not going to do is expand Medicaid. That's Obamacare, in case you didn't know that. Expanding Medicaid is Obamacare at its purest form. So Obamacare should be called Obamacare. We're not going to do that. I am the guy in the General Assembly who has stopped the Chamber of Commerce, who has stopped Georgia Hospital Association, who has stopped others in that capital that want to expand Medicaid. I have been the voice of opposition. I need to be back there because I will tell you what, Obamacare is not completely repealed. Remember that. There are still tentacles that have to be cut off. There's still tentacles that have to stop. This hurts rural Georgia also. The CON law, Certificate of Need law, that needs to go away. That is Georgia's version of Obamacare. But you have establishment Republicans. You have the establishment at the Chamber of Commerce. You have the establishment at the Georgia Hospital Association. They want to protect the status quo because they benefit from the status quo, but yet reduces access to health care to rural parts of the state. Not only that, it hurts innovation. Hurts medical innovation. We need to weaken that law. If the best thing we need to do is repeal that law. But I know legislative reality. We got to start where we can win first. And let's weaken the CON law. We also put in tax credits. So rural hospitals, people can put their money and their tax money directly to a rural hospital that needs it. Also, I have put in initiatives to those hospitals that have closed, those rural hospitals that have closed. I want to convert those into veterans homes. We need veterans homes in rural Georgia too, not just Millersville and Augusta. So those are the things I've been working on in the General Assembly, and I'll continue to work on those when I get back there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sainz?
I want to start off with saying surprise to stuff, which I'm sure a lot of you, Obamacare is not working. I say that from the experience of being a manager for a small corporation. I came into an agency that had a healthcare staff, and back in 2012, we cut our staff for efficiency to less than 5 people. We did the requirement to give your employees a healthcare plan. Wasn't allowed to do that. Now Obamacare made it illegal for you to give a health care stipend to employees. So I wasn't allowed to do that either. Like the state, I was tied with my hands to give private care to our employees, to our head of households. The state, likewise, has been tied to make meaningful legislation because Obamacare, yes, is not gone. And like I said earlier, we are accountable for our actions at this point. There's no one else to blame right now other than the Republican Party. If we do not act, we need to act on a federal level to ensure that all those remains of Obamacare, which include the way that the insurances, the government-funded insurances are given, are restructured without that there. The House, the legislation, the DC tried to fix it. They haven't yet. Let's hope they do that soon so Georgia can make meaningful change. As far as rural hospital goes, the conversations I've had is that it's first a infrastructure issue, but more meaningfully, it is a people issue. We need to recruit the providers necessary to practice in rural Georgia. There's many who don't. It's a tiring process. I commend those who do it. And we need to ensure that we get those people, those nurses, those physician's assistants, the doctors, those people practicing in rural Georgia, because we can build the hospitals, we can have the infrastructure there, but if we do not have the people necessary to take care of rural Georgians, we won't have much.
Thank you. Next question. Do you support abolishing the state income tax? And if so, what changes would you propose to other taxes and spending to make it revenue neutral? Mr. Saniz.
As far as abolishing income tax, we're a border community, we're a border district. The income tax in Georgia is unarguably a detriment to this district. We lose people to Florida, we lose them to South Carolina, but Florida is a no income tax state. I know people personally that moved to Florida to live there because their state government doesn't tax them. I'd be for finding a solution to that restricts Georgia from having an income tax if it's physically sound. One thing I'm a proponent for is that Georgia has been, because of the Republican leadership in our state for multiple years, a fiscally sound state as far as it goes to zero-based budgeting, as far as ensuring we do not gain a huge amount of debt for our citizens to have to pay back. But one bill that I will sponsor in the State House related to income reduction is taking away the income tax of our veterans. It's an insult to the veterans of Georgia that we take an income, the tax from their retirement income. It's $100 million from the estimate I saw that would put Georgia in the hole. I don't think that estimate shows the second jobs that most veterans work. If we had them living in our state, we would recapture that income. But it's an insult. It's something that we're on the list of only 12 other states for having that tax on their income. If the rest of the states can do it, we need to do it as well.
Thank you. Representative Spencer?
Well, I have been in the General Assembly 8 years, and one thing that I've learned being up there is tax policy is hard to do. Again, you have to fight special interests because every special interest wants their piece of the pie and they want their territory protected. And that's why we cut the income tax for the first time in 80 years in Georgia. We did it this year. We cut it to 5.75% from its baseline of 6%. The first time in 80 years, folks. Now, I'm going here to tell you, I do support the elimination of state income tax, but I'm not going to tell you no stories. I'm not going to tell you no fibs. It's going to be hard to do. We did it for the first time in 80 years. We're going to do it again in 2020 with a 5.5% cut. But I'm going to tell you, it's going to be hard. He's right. We are a border district. Florida's going to eat our lunch if we don't continue to become a low tax state. But I would say Georgia is competitive. Florida is the lowest burden tax state in the United States. They're number 50 in terms of tax burden. Who's number 49? Georgia. We're not doing too bad. But I will tell you, I want to win. And when I want to bring those spaceport jobs into Southeast Georgia, what scares me at night is that income tax here in Georgia. I want to make sure those $90,000 and $80,000 jobs stay in Camden County, Charlton County, and the southern east portion of the state. I don't want them to go over into Yulee and Nassau County, I can tell you that. I want them to stay in Southeast Georgia. And so, I agree. The veterans should get an exemption. But you know what? I'd like to see everybody get an income tax exemption, but he's right. We need to start there first too.
Thank you. Okay, next question. How would you improve Georgia laws and regulations to more effectively fight the opioid crisis? Representative Spencer.
Wow, that's a tough problem. Addiction has been around with man since man has existed. We can read about the Indians smoking peace pipes. We can read about, the opium market in the Southeast Asia. But addiction has been with our society since day one. It's in the Bible. So it's going to be hard to do. I will tell you this, the longer I've been up there in the General Assembly, the more regulation and restrictions we put on access to medicines. That narcotic and opioid stuff goes underground. It gets underground into the black market. I see it every day as a professional in the emergency medicine system. Those drugs get more potent. You don't know what gets put in them. These are shade tree chemists. They're getting smarter and smarter the more regulations we put on it. So I'm not so sure more regulation is the key to solving this problem. We don't have an answer to this because the more we crack down, the more potent those narcotics get, the more dangerous they get, the more Narcan we have to use in the emergency department. So I'm not sure what the answer is. I will tell you this, government does not have the solution to this. It is society, it is faith-based communities, it is us as a community that has to come up with the answer to this. I don't have the answer to that question.
Thank you. Mr. Saniz?
This is an issue we do need to address. It's a public health crisis in the state of Georgia. It's a public health crisis down here. It's a public health crisis in the nation. Opioid addiction is on the rise. And one thing, I go to the schools. My first profession was a substance preventionist in Camden County. And now I direct substance prevention contracts. It's hard to have statistics, but a proven statistic, if you look at the Georgia Student Health Survey, which each county does, is Camden County has reduced its level of 30-day use of high school and middle school students, alcohol drinking, and pharmaceuticals. What that does is the best way, the most efficient way to spend our dollars is not on when someone is addicted to opioids. It's before that point. It's preventing youth, it's preventing children from misusing substances from the get-go to where it creates normative behavior. I think we need to have efficient programs, and we need to ensure that most communities have access. I was proud to write a contract that afforded Camden County the opportunity of only 33 other counties to address substance prevention programs in the state of Georgia. And that is something that's unfortunately not everywhere. Ware County happens to have that as well. It's one of the 33. Atlanta tried to fight that first phase. Camden was one of the only 20 at first. Where finally did seek that administration. It's no surprise to anyone that Atlanta will try to fight for the dollars up there versus coming down here. But we need to ensure we stop it at the root, which is our youth, and ensure at the level where it is now, it is a difficult problem. I don't know the solution, but I do know that when we talk about law enforcement, we need to ensure we go at the infrastructure of the issue. Arresting a person doesn't arrest the crime. We need to do RICO violations, asset forfeiture to take away the infrastructure, which is the only way that you actually stop criminal enterprises.
Thank you. Next question. Do you consider the U.S. Constitution a living, breathing document that can evolve with the times, or do you believe in a strict construction of the Constitution, Mr. Saniz?
For all the faults that we might bear in the efficiencies of our federal government, there is one thing that is paramount. This country is greater than any other country in the world. It is stronger, its economy is most vibrant. What I think the attribution that I give to that document is the Constitution. I think it would be foolish of us to take a document that was well written, that has been replicated throughout the globe, to try to copy what we've done and dilute it out of the name of making it livable. There is no such thing as livable paper. There's no such thing as livable print. I believe the Constitution is what it says it is the words in the text, and I would fight to make sure we continue that great experiment through that in that way in the legislature.
Thank you. Representative Spencer?
Well, the Constitution is the words on the paper. Society changes its meanings of its words as words evolve, as modernization occurs. But when we're reading the Constitution, being a constructionist means you read it, and in which the time in which it was written, you understand the words that were used and the times those meanings applied then. That is the basis of our Constitution. That's how we understand our Constitution. Too many times this living, breathing document, philosophy, is being taught in our school system. It's being taught, it's malleable. It can fit the modern world. What it needs to do, what people need to do, is read the Constitution the way it was written, when the words were written and defined at the time. That's how you understand your country. That's how you understand your history. And you know what? We'll be smarter for it if we did that. We'll be safer for it if we did that. We wouldn't have open borders like we do now. We wouldn't have these large welfare programs like we do now. We wouldn't have prolificate spending at the federal level. We wouldn't have those things if we just stick with the Constitution in its originalist form. We'll be a better country for that.
Thank you, sir. Do you believe that Georgia should give tax incentives to for-profit businesses? Why or why not? Representative Spencer.
Well, we have had to study this issue in the General Assembly for quite some time. We do occasionally give incentives to companies that come to Georgia. For example, there's a debate going on right now whether or not Georgia should be giving incentives to a company, Amazon, so they can locate their headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. And so there's this debate whether or not we're going to give $10 billion worth of tax money or tax breaks to a corporation like this. What about the little guy? What about the little guy that runs a business here in Georgia? Where's their tax break? Are they going to be treated the same? Many times and oftentimes, these policies are pushed by well-established interest groups, and I keep saying them again, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. They're up to no good, folks, and they undermine your value system here in Georgia, and they don't stand up for the little guy.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saniz?
I think the question here is, what is an incentive for a business to come to a community, and what is corporate welfare being hidden by politicians with false agendas to put in welfare to their buddies who are funding them? What we need to ensure is we have a very conservative plan for incentivizing companies, and that plan is only used, those incentives are only used to leverage a company that otherwise wouldn't come to a community into coming into that community. The risk that any incentive takes, that any local, state government takes is, well, the benefit of the jobs, the benefit of those investments of that company. If those employees choose not to live in our district, not to live in our community, not to live in our state, we're losing that investment. We're losing that risk. So it goes back to remaining competitive as a border community to ensure people want to live in our communities. But when it comes to the incentives that is offered in Georgia, I'll take a look at Florida. A year or two ago, they took away all the major incentives they had because the legislature looked at it and said it wasn't a net benefit to the state of Florida. They're giving away the basket when it came to getting companies there. There's no use getting a company there by incentives if it reduces the economy of the state or the economy of the local economy if it's a local incentive.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next question. Do you support strict laws protecting all of Georgia's Confederate monuments? Please explain your answer, Mr. Saniz.
I want to start by saying I don't remember this ever being an issue till the liberal media made it one. I've talked to a lot of people in this district, all who are favorable of those monuments being kept. I haven't talked to anyone who is against any Confederate monument being kept. And the only reason I've heard in this district of why those Confederate monuments should be kept is because it's a heritage to the individuals that live in this community. It's history. We can't change the Constitution. We can't change our past. We need to be proud of the positives of it. We need to be proud of who we are. We need to look at that. We don't need to get into, I'm not going to get into the argument of why it should or shouldn't be there, because I don't think it's being led by anyone in Georgia. I don't think it's being led by anyone in this district. It's being led by the liberal national media and its surrogates in the state. I don't think this should be an argument. Confederate monument should stay. Every other historical monument that a civilization had invested in it that has a significant impact to its root should stay. It's historical.
Thank you. Representative Spencer?
Well, the law we have on the books now is fine. We need to protect the law that's on the books now. That was the deal that was made when the Confederate flag was removed from the official Georgia flag. The deal was leave the monuments alone. And so the current law that's on the books now is just fine. We don't need to change that law. It protects every single Confederate monument in this state. And it protects the monument in Waycross that's over down there in downtown. It protects these cemeteries, these Confederate cemeteries. These people were veterans. They are considered veterans under U.S. law. And I'm sorry, but there are people in Georgia that want to take these monuments down. And I will say, Stacey Abrams, who's running for governor in the Democratic primary, wants to blow the side off of Stone Mountain because she used the word, she called it blight. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that the Confederate monuments are low-hanging fruit for the radical left. And you can bet your money, if we get Stacey Abrams as governor, that's going to be mission one for her. There are people in Georgia wanting to take down these monuments. They do want to change our Constitution. They do want to change our history. That's exactly what they want to do. I'll also say this, when those monuments come down, what's next? Arlington National Cemetery? Were you aware that Arlington National Cemetery was the property of Robert E. Lee? They buried a Union soldier in the Arlington National Cemetery as a poke in the face to Robert E. Lee. Folks, it'll be George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and Abraham Lincoln next.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next question. Do you support casino gambling in Georgia? Why or why not? Representative Spencer.
No. The answer is an absolute no. The way they are setting this up, if you look at the legislation, it is one big government operation. The way this commission is set up on this casino gambling, the way they want to do it, it's going to be good old boy appointments. And those good old boy appointments are going to be watching that money. Just watch out for the palm greasing is all I got to say. I don't like that issue. I don't like it. And it's an absolute no for me.
Thank you, Mr. Saniz.
Casinos have never shown to be a win for any community that's had it. Any politicians who say otherwise have other reasons to be doing it. It's a detriment to to local community, the livability of a community that's data proven, and I'm a supporter of that data. I would be against any casino gambling in this territory, any expansion
Thank you, sir. Next question. Do you think the State Board of Education members should be appointed or elected? Explain your answer, Mr. Saniz.
I believe every government of significance, every government office of significance should first and foremost be elected. Appointed governance is at the root the citizens giving away the right to make a direct opinion of their office. So I'm against moving anything from elected to appointment, and anything that makes sensible sense to do so, which I think the Department of Education is a sensible position to be an elected office. I support it being an elected office.
Thank you. Representative Spencer.
State Board of Education controls a significant amount of the state budget. Absolutely, they should be elected. They should be elected by congressional district. They should not be appointed. We have a top-heavy executive government in Georgia. Traditionally, Georgia has been a heavy centralized executive government for many, many years. That's why a lot of times we jokingly in the legislature refer to the governor as king, because that person has so much power. So much power. We need to decentralize that power, especially from the Department of Education. We need to do that. And the way to do that is you elect those members who have so much control over the state budget and how policy is made. We need to give more legislative oversight in that area. We don't have enough. We just don't have enough there. And so I feel like the State Board of Education needs to be decentralized. The department needs to be decentralized. We need to move power away from the governor's office, and we need to have these board members elected. We need to have them accountable to the people. That's the only way to have them more responsive to the people.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Would you support turning Georgia into a gun rights sanctuary state in response to any new gun control laws or regulations which may come from Washington, D.C.? Representative Spencer.
So if I understand the term gun rights sanctuary state, my assumption is that we're going to make Georgia a very hospitable place to exercise your gun rights, if I understand that correctly. So I would absolutely do that. It would be constitutional to uphold our Second Amendment rights, and all we have to do is hold up that document in court if it was ever challenged. And we've got the Second Amendment, we've got the First Amendment, and we've also got the 10th Amendment. If the states want to do it, we can do it. I've been a 10th Amendment advocate ever since I've been up in Atlanta. And it first started with Obamacare. If we need to do it in Georgia with the Second Amendment, I'll be right there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saniz.
Every citizen has the right to bear arms, and every citizen has the right to bear arms. That is a period statement. I'll support any legislation that protects the citizen's right to have gun ownership, gun possession, and to carry. That needs to be protected, unfortunately, because not all representatives in this nation and not all representatives in this state are very clear on the constitutional rights of their citizens, and that's unfortunate. As your representative, if elected, I will ensure that Georgia is a gun welcoming state, that every citizen has the right to carry, and that we increase the jurisdictions in Georgia that a citizen has the right, that is, and decrease where it's a gun-free zone.
Thank you. Next question. Should the Democrats retake control of the federal government and restart the refugee resettlement program, will you work to pass legislation blocking such an effort to turn Georgia blue by flooding our counties and towns? Mr. Saniz.
Let's ensure that doesn't happen on a federal level, first of all. So make sure to get out and vote, and make sure to ensure that we stay in November a red threshold in D.C. We need to, because at the end of the day, immigration policy is led by D.C. I'm not going to try to fool anyone by saying otherwise. But if that day, and hopefully never happens, we need to ensure as a state we protect our citizens. If the federal government decides not to, and yes, we need to ensure there's no sanctuaries. If we need to add added provisions to ensure there's no illegal immigrants coming to our state, we must do so out of protection to our citizens.
Thank you. Representative Spencer.
Well, this is an interesting issue in Georgia. I will say this. I am concerned if the Democrats would get back in power at the federal level. They're going to use the power of the Department of the Secretary of State, Federal Secretary of State, U.S. Department, and they're the ones responsible for recruiting refugees from other countries that may not hold our value systems, that may be Somali Muslims. We've already had situations in Georgia where the State Department has brought in and resettled Somali Muslims inside the state of Georgia and attacked people in full clad burqa. And it's happened here in Georgia. But some people think that's not an issue. But I beg to differ. It will become an issue if this policy at the federal level does not stop. What can Georgia do? It's very hard for us to do anything at this point. But what we need to be doing is making sure that we be proactive. We look at things that we can do to help identify who these radicals are. And so I am concerned about that. The refugee settlement program right now, that money actually gets funneled to the state of Georgia. And we have a choice to make in the state of Georgia. Do we redirect those funds to nonprofits like Acorn? I mean, do we let them do the refugee settlement program in Georgia? I think not. So right now, the state of Georgia has to control that. It's not a perfect system. But would you rather give it over to a nonprofit that has Democratic leanings? No, I say not. It's a tough issue in Georgia, and we need to be watching this and be proactive.
Thank you, sir. Next question. Universities and colleges suppressing freedom of speech of Christian and conservative organizations on campuses throughout America. What will you do to protect freedom of speech on Georgia's university and college campuses? Representative Spencer.
Well, we've already taken the first steps in the General Assembly to start that. Actually, a local senator in our area, Senator William Logan, actually sponsored a bill to do just that. And so we passed that bill. That bill passed with flying colors mostly Republicans who voted for that. So we have already taken steps in the General Assembly to make sure that people have the right of freedom of speech and to assemble on college campuses. Those folks in academia, they lean left. They don't care for this type our values. They just don't care for it. But I commend Senator Ligon for doing the right thing and pushing the bill through that we could vote on that works.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Saniz?
I was posed an interesting question at a former forum in Camden County by someone who seemed to have liberal leanings. That, you know, what, can we have pump stock legislation? You know, that the Constitution doesn't talk about that. Well, the Constitution doesn't talk about Facebook or social media. It doesn't mean that there's period statements. The right to bear arms is a period statement. The right to free speech is a period statement, is a non-negotiable in our country. And I commend the actions of Senator Ligon to sponsor that piece of legislation and to get it passed. And we need to ensure that the zones that these colleges are trying to breed, we have a lot of institutions of higher education in this district. It's impactful to this district. We need to ensure that everyone has the right to free speech, everyone has the right to care.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take one audience question here. Do you support homosexual marriages? Yes or no? Yes, that'll be Mr. Saniz first.
Sure. Something that's been whispered about a great deal, I think. No, I think it's very data proven that a child is the most successful in a traditional two-parent household, and we need to ensure that that tradition is kept. It's in the data.
Thank you, sir. Representative Spencer?
I do not support homosexual marriage. It is not God's plan. God clearly wrote a plan in the Bible, and He saw that society is to function in that order. So I don't see the productivity in a homosexual marriage. I don't see where that's productive to society. I think it undermines society. I think the traditional family is what we should be supporting. It is the best system for kids to be raised in. I will tell you, I have concerns. I have concerns that we need to consider electing someone who holds those same value systems. And I'm just concerned that that representation may not happen this election. But I'm concerned. And I would ask you to consider that when you vote in this election.
Mr. Saniz, would you like a rebuttal?
I think allegations that have been made or discussed, and I'm not going to give them the time of day they deserve. But I will say, if there's concerns about my ethics, I'll quote the verse I read every day is to live justly, to act with mercy, and to walk humbly with the Lord. I take every action I do in that order. I'm a God-fearing Christian conservative. If there's any questions about that, call me. My cell phone's on there. I'm happy to talk to you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so now we're going to do the closings. Representative Spencer, you get to go first.
Well, again, it's been an honor for the last 6 years to represent Ware County and Waycross, Charlton County, and Camden County. Since the lines were redrawn a few years ago, it's been an honor to represent Southeast Georgia in the General Assembly for the last 8 years. I want to thank my family for giving major sacrifice to support me while I've been in office. I want to thank the community who has been uplifting to me when they know that I'm trying to do the right thing up in Atlanta. I want to thank the community for helping me fight against special interests. They know they see what's happening, they know what's going on. And so I appreciate that. I just would like to say that I've done things for Ware County. We changed that development authority here. We removed the influence of the Chamber of Commerce off of that board. That's one of the best things we've done for Ware County. We are continuing to focus on and making sure Highway 84 is gone through completion. When I first started representing Ware County, that was the #1 project here in Ware County, is to make sure 84 gets 4-laned all the way. And we're doing that. When our delegation took over and we had the new representation, we got on that immediately. I want to make sure that the overpass continues. That project is getting expedited, and our legislative delegation is working hard to do that because there's safety issues there for Ware County and Waycross. I want to make sure that we continue to fund our local workforce training here in Waycross, as well in Camden County, and we're doing that. And so, again, I also want to press upon you all tonight that South Georgia will be losing representation in the next census. That's important because we need experienced leaders, experienced voices that will actually represent your values in Atlanta. Now is the time not to change midstream. We cannot afford to have inexperience up in Atlanta with these political circumstances about to face us. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor representing you for the last 6 years. It's been an honor representing Southeast Georgia for the last 8 years. And I will continue to work on your behalf and your families here in Southeast Georgia. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Saniz?
I'd first like to say, one thing I would never say is it's not a sacrifice to be in this office. I commend Representative Spencer, I commend his family for giving the sacrifices that they have throughout the 8 years that he has been in office. What I've said throughout this campaign is I'm running a positive, conservative, South Georgia first campaign. That means I want an advocate in Atlanta that's more than a bomb thrower and is a builder, that has meaningful results. Sponsored legislation isn't legislation. We need to ensure I will talk about what has been done, what has passed, what has made a meaningful impact into this district. And I'll say, as far as it goes, yes, we're about to get chopped up again in the districting process. That happened before to this district in 2012. This district got chopped up then. The representation that's in now is the one that was in then. That's all I'm going to say about it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you guys. That was great. I really appreciate you being here. Can we get a round of applause for the